cyber attack targeting the government's top agencies. Dozens of U.S. networks breached, including Treasury, State, Homeland Security, and the Department of Energy. While President Trump downplays the threat, his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, called out the Russians, and top Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill are calling the attack an act of war that demands retaliation. Our Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas has the latest. Good morning, Pierre.
George, the president suggested China might be involved, putting him at odds with his own Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who confirmed the Russian intelligence is a prime suspect. And then you have a statement from Senate Intelligence Committee Acting Chairman Marco Rubio, a Republican, saying it's, quote, increasingly clear that Russian intelligence conducted the gravest cyber intrusion in our history. George, I've been covering cyber attacks on the U.S. government for more than 20 years, and I've never seen anything quite like this. We're talking not just one agency, but departments across the entire federal government. The Russians are suspected of spying on the emails and communications of U.S. government officials and those in private companies. George, there's deep concern that this is ongoing and that the Russians may have the capacity to manipulate and damage computer networks. It is all made worse by the fact that this breach was launched in March and went undetected for months, George.
Yeah, we don't even know what we don't know right now. How could something so sweeping like this happen?
George, there's a company called SolarWinds that makes software products which monitor traffic on computer networks looking for anomalies. It turns out that this product is ubiquitous, used by multiple government agencies and many Fortune 500 companies, George. It's a serious situation, and there's a bunch of questions. How did so many government agencies allow themselves to be dependent on one company's product? And why were there so many security requirements for this company that were not apparently followed, George?
Okay, Pierre, thanks very much. Let's get more on this now from the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner. Senator Warner, thanks for joining us this morning. You know, we saw President Trump downplay the attack yesterday in a tweet saying it's all under control, that China, not Russia, may be behind it. Any doubt it was the Russians?
I would echo what Secretary Pompeo has said and Marco Rubio has said. All indications point to Russia. Matter of fact, FireEye, one of the nation's top cybersecurity companies who got hacked, they also indicted Russia. Thank goodness FireEye came forward, because if they had not come forward, we might not have still been able to even discover the attack. This attack also shows when a nation state brings their best tools to the table, it's very tough for any government agency or company, for that matter, to keep them out. So I think this raises a whole host of questions of how did they get in, stay so long? How do we make sure our government agency, for example, CISA, that's supposed to oversee cybersecurity, there's not even a requirement that private companies, or for that matter, even public agencies, have to affirmatively report that kind of attack or intrusion to CISA. We're going to need to look at a whole new set of rules and, frankly, find ways to align with our allies to prevent this kind of activity from going forward.
And is it under control right now, or is it still ongoing?
This attack, you mentioned SolarWinds, 18,000 customers, ubiquitous across industry and government. We have narrowed this to companies and agencies that we know the bad guys got in, but they got in and they were in for a long time. So they're very deep. It may be ongoing. We have not discovered how we will ferret them fully out. And one of the things I think we need to realize is when you get into a supply chain of any product, you can go from one company into another, and ultimately get down to some of our most important innovation tools being discovered by our adversaries. This is extraordinarily serious, and when the President of the United States either tries to deflect or is not willing to call out the adversary as we make this attribution, he is not making our country safer.
We know this has been going on since at least March. Are we confident our systems weren't breached before that? And what is the goal of this operation? Is it theft and destruction of data, or is it actual intelligence collection?
So far, the good news is it appears that only the non-classified networks have been breached, or there's no indication yet, at least, that classified networks have been breached, number one. Number two, the amount of information and the targeting of both of companies shows a very, very sophisticated actor. This is classic, obtaining information, critical information, potentially intellectual product. I mentioned FireEye. They actually stole from FireEye. They've revealed their red team tactics of how they would counter a cyber intrusion. So the adversary, very probably, as the Secretary of State said, Russia, came away with a big haul, and we're still determining how extensive this attack will be. It will take us literally weeks to continue to ferret this out, and then potentially months to remediate.
Senator Mitt Romney called it the modern equivalent of Russian bombers flying undetected over our entire country. Is it an act of war? And if so, how should we retaliate?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with Senator Romney's analogy. This is a very sophisticated espionage attempt to take information, key information, potentially ability to frankly intimidate actual individuals in government as well as intellectual property. But it begs the fact that we really don't have a set of cyber norms. I sometimes think we disproportionately spend on tanks, ships, and guns when we should be better protecting on cyber. And I think not only America, but frankly, our Five Eye partners, NATO, other, because there are international implications of this attack as well. We need to be very clear with a affirmative cyber doctrine that says you do this kind of broad-based, indiscriminate attack, you will bear the consequences. We don't have those kind of those norms out there. We knew back in the 20th century when there were you cross the line militarily, we'll strike back. There was mutually assured destruction with nuclear weapons. This is not the level of an attack that, for example, that Russia took on Ukraine, where they were literally trying to shut down systems. But this is in that gray area between espionage and an attack. And I think the only way we're going to be able to counter it is not only better cyber hygiene, better protocols on how information must be shared if you are attacked, and then making very clear to our adversaries that if you take this kind of action, we and others will strike back.
How do you respond to those who say this is exactly the kind of thing America does all the time? We attack and we conduct espionage on foreign governments and foreign systems. We do hacks.
The level of indiscriminate attack launched, as Secretary of State Pompeo said, by potentially a Russian spy agency. This is as broad and as deep as anything we've ever seen. And the idea that that should go unanswered would be very bad American policy, and frankly, simply invite Russians or others to continue these kind of malicious activities.
Before I let you go, is this COVID relief deal going to come together today, and is it something you can live with?
Well, let's put it like this. I was with Senator Schumer last night in his office till about 11 o'clock. I was glad to see that Senator Toomey accepted Senator Schumer's offer on a compromise. We will preclude 3 of these facilities from being set up again without congressional approval, what was already the law. We did not think tying the hands of a future Fed or Treasury made any sense. And the great news is Congress is not going to be the Grinch. We're going to get this package done. And I'm very proud that in many ways this package only came about, George, because a bipartisan group of senators spent a month working hard showing the American people that we can actually do things when we have such an amazing need. So folks who are going to run out of unemployment the day after Christmas or potentially get kicked out of their apartment or those long lines at the food banks, help is on the way.
Senator Warner, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, George.